Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into some pretty special today.
Yeah, really special.
Ibn Ajiba's commentary on Surah Yaseen. This chapter of the Quran is so important.
Right.
It's often called the heart of the Quran.
Like the core.
Yeah. The essence.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at excerpts from Ajiba's commentary.
Al-Bar al-Madid.
Meaning?
The vast ocean.
Wow.
Pretty fitting title.
And we're also going to be weaving in some related hadiths.
Those sayings of the Prophet Muhammad.
Right. And our mission today,
if we choose to accept it,
is to try to figure out what makes this chapter so powerful and what it can teach us about faith and action and
the afterlife. Big stuff.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's like we're not just reading the chapter, we're experiencing it.
Through the eyes of this 18th century Moroccan saint.
Okay, so first things first. Why is Surah Yasin considered the heart of the Quran?
Well, it's like saying it's the core, the essence of the whole text.
Right.
And Ibn Ajiba actually gives it several names. It's not just Yasin. He calls it the enveloper, the repeller, the fulfiller.
Whoa, those are pretty intense. What do those names tell us?
They hint at it's fascinating how even something as simple as the location can spark debate among scholars.
Well, let's dive into the opening verses now.
Okay, yeah.
They're addressed to the Prophet Muhammad using Yasin.
Right.
What's the meaning of that?
Well, the Quran is known for its poetic language.
Right.
And this opening is a great example of that.
So, what, some people see it as a direct address to the Prophet.
Yeah.
Others as more symbolic, referring to humanity as a whole.
That's right. But Ibn Ajiba, he takes this really mystical approach.
He does, doesn't he? He suggests it's almost like a secret code between God and the Prophet.
Yeah, a hidden communication.
So he's elevating it beyond just a simple name. He's hinting at this deeper, more intimate connection.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the idea of the straight path. This is a recurring theme throughout the Quran.
Definitely.
So in this context, what does it mean?
It's about aligning your actions and thoughts.
With the divine will.
Right. But it's not just about outward actions. It's also this inward journey of the heart.
Transformation of your being.
Exactly.
But the chapter also addresses those who reject this path.
Right, those who choose disbelief.
Yeah. And Ibn Ajiba uses some pretty intense imagery here.
He does. Iron collars, limited vision. He even talks about a predetermined decree of disbelief.
Wow. So it definitely feels like a warning.
It definitely evokes the consequences of rejecting truth.
But this raises a question, right?
Yeah.
Ibn Arafa explores this. If some are already destined for disbelief, then why warn them? Is it a test?
Right. Is it about divine justice? Individual responsibility? It's something else entirely.
And this actually adds another layer to how we think about resurrection. We often think of it as physical death and rebirth.
Yeah.
But here it's also about emerging from ignorance into faith. It's like a spiritual resurrection.
You've hit on a key point there. Surah Yasin uses resurrection in these two ways.
Oh, wow.
Both literally and metaphorically.
So it's not just what happens after we die, but the transformative power of faith in this life. And speaking of transformations, the chapter tells this really vivid story about messengers.
Oh, right.
Sent to the city Antioch.
Yeah.
And I was really drawn to Habib the carpenter.
Oh, interesting. Why him?
He immediately recognizes the truth in the messenger's message. He feels very symbolic to me.
Yeah.
Like that spark of recognition that can ignite faith.
He's often seen as representing that individual who, surrounded by disbelief, sees through it all and embraces the truth.
And then you have the miracles the messengers perform, like healing the sick, restoring sight.
Those signs of power beyond the ordinary.
Pointing to divine power.
Right. But even after witnessing these miracles, many still reject the message.
And then ultimately Antioch is destroyed.
A reminder of what can happen when warnings are ignored.
And this brings us back to that theme of warnings and disbelief, right? The warnings are given, the signs are revealed, but the choice ultimately lies with us.
It emphasizes free will in the face of destiny.
And that choice, it has these really profound implications for our lives.
Both our worldly and eternal lives, yeah.
So it's like the chapter is saying, here's the path, here are the signs, now choose wisely.
Exactly. And it's not just telling stories, it's using imagery from the natural world too.
Oh, right, like signs of God's power.
The dead earth coming to life, the cycle of night and day, the moon's phases.
It's like the universe itself is a testament to the divine.
And what's fascinating is how Ibn Ajiba connects those outer signs to our inner state.
Okay.
He describes the sun resting in the hearts of the Gnostics.
The Gnostics.
Those who have achieved deep spiritual understanding.
So the signs aren't just out there, they're also within us.
Exactly. The more we purify our hearts, the more we align with the divine.
The more we reflect that divine light.
Exactly.
It makes you look at everyday things like the sunrise or the moon and realize we're part of something much bigger.
Absolutely.
And then Surah Yaseen reminds us of our covenant with God.
To worship him alone and reject Satan.
Which brings us to that age-old debate. Free will versus predestination.
Right. And Ibn Ajiba gives some really interesting insight into how this covenant plays out in our spiritual journey.
How so?
He suggests that while we have free will,
Okay.
our choices are influenced by our nature and the circumstances we find ourselves in.
So it's this dance between divine will and our own agency. We have freedom, but our choices are shaped by forces outside of our control.
Yeah. That tension is part of what makes the human experience so complex and fascinating, and Surah Yaseen encourages us to embrace that complexity.
To delve deeper into these mysteries.
Exactly. It's not about blind faith or rigid rules. It's about prompting us to think critically, to question.
The chapter ends with this really powerful depiction of the Day of Judgment, the trumpet blast,
Yeah.
the resurrection of the dead, the reckoning of our deeds.
And Ibn Ajiba, through his mystical lens, he sees judgment not just as a physical event, but as a separation from God, a state of spiritual darkness.
So the real torment is being cut off from the source of all goodness and mercy.
That's the real fire that burns.
Okay, but we can't talk about Judgment Day without talking about paradise, right?
Of course not.
So what does Ibn Ajiba say about paradise?
He paints this really vivid picture of bliss. Gardens, shade, reclining on thrones, abundant fruit. But beyond those earthly pleasures, he talks about that ultimate reward. Peace. 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 A statement from a merciful Lord.
That's beautiful.
That's a beautiful image, right? Being greeted with peace directly from the source of mercy.
That's true fulfillment.
Yeah.
But then we have this hadith about the people of paradise being mostly simple-minded.
Right.
Which seems to contradict this idea of intellectual and spiritual delights.
Well, remember, these texts operate on multiple levels. This hadith could be emphasizing the importance of humility, sincerity.
So it's not about intellectual prowess, it's about the purity of the heart.
Exactly. Even in paradise, the heart matters most.
Wow. This first part of our deep dive has been so insightful. We've explored the significance of Surah Yaseen, Ibn Ajiba's mystical interpretations, and these really thought-provoking hadiths.
And we're just getting started.
There's so much more to uncover
in this multi-layered text.
But let's pause here and give you a moment to process what we've talked about. Okay, so we left off talking about paradise.
Yeah.
And that hadith about the people of paradise being simple-minded.
That one always throws people for a loop.
It seems a little counterintuitive, right? Like, you think paradise would be full of these brilliant minds having all these deep philosophical discussions.
It's one of those fascinating paradoxes that challenges our preconceptions of paradise. Remember, the Quran uses a lot of symbolism and metaphor.
Okay.
And this hadith might not be about intellectual capacity, but more about a certain state of being.
So simple-minded could actually mean like a heart that's free from all the complexities and anxieties of worldly life?
Yeah, exactly.
A heart purely focused on the connection with the divine.
A pure, unburdened heart. A state of complete surrender and trust in God.
And that really aligns with Ibn Ajiba's Sufi perspective, doesn't it? Which emphasizes that inner purification, that direct experience of the divine.
Absolutely. It's like he's reminding us that the journey to paradise, it actually begins within.
In this life.
Yeah. It's about transforming our inner world, purifying our hearts, aligning ourselves with divine will.
And that transformation is so beautifully reflected in all that natural imagery in Surah Yaseen.
You're talking about those vivid descriptions of the dead earth coming to life.
Yeah.
The cycle of night and day.
Moon's phases.
It's as if the entire universe is mirroring this process of renewal and rebirth, the same thing we're striving for.
Exactly.
And Ibn Ajiba takes it even a step further by connecting those outer signs to our inner spiritual state.
Yeah.
He uses this metaphor of the sun resting in the hearts of the Gnostics.
The Gnostics.
Those who have achieved that deep understanding of the divine. It's like saying that when we purify our hearts, when we connect with God, we become illuminated from within.
So those signs of God's power, they're not just these external phenomena.
Right.
They're also within us.
It's like the more we align ourselves with the divine, the more we radiate that divine light.
We become a walking, talking testament to God's presence in the world.
That's the transformative power of this chapter.
It's not just about following the rules, reciting the verses. It's about embodying that connection in
Yeah.
every aspect of our lives.
Exactly. And it all starts with recognizing our own place in the grand scheme of things.
And Surah Yasin reminds us that we were created from this single sperm drop,
Right.
seemingly insignificant.
This tiny speck.
But from that humble beginning, we've become these conscious beings, capable of deep love, compassion, spiritual understanding.
It's a powerful reminder of the miracle of our existence, the incredible potential within each of us.
But the chapter also acknowledges the darker side of human nature, right?
Yeah, definitely. We see that in the story of the messengers sent to Antioch,
Right.
and in the warnings about those who choose disbelief, who turn away from God's signs.
It's interesting how Ibn Ajiba doesn't shy away from those more difficult topics.
No, he does.
He explores free will and predestination,
Mm-hmm.
the challenges of staying on that straight path, and what happens when we stray.
It's a reminder that the journey to paradise isn't always easy.
No, definitely not. It's reassuring to know that even when we stumble, when we lose our way,
Mm-hmm.
we can always turn back.
That's the beauty of God's mercy. It's always there. And the path to paradise is open to everyone who sincerely seeks it.
Absolutely. And that turning back, that seeking, that's what the spiritual journey is all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process of purifying ourselves, aligning our actions, our intentions.
With the divine will.
So Surah Yasin isn't just a set of abstract doctrines or moral guidelines. It's a practical guide for how to live our lives.
Yeah, with all the ups and downs.
It offers comfort when we're in sorrow,
Encouragement when we're in doubt.
inspiration to keep striving toward those highest aspirations,
It invites us to see the world differently.
to recognize God's presence in everything around us.
And to cultivate that open heart, receptive to his guidance.
This has been incredible. We've explored so much
Yeah.
about the significance of Surah Yasin, Ibn Ajiba's mystical interpretation.
Plus thought-provoking hadiths.
We've only scratched the surface, really.
There's always more to uncover.
But let's pause here for a second and give you some time to reflect. It's interesting, we've been exploring some pretty intense concepts.
Yeah, pretty heavy stuff.
Paradise, Judgment Day, staying on that straight path.
Yeah.
But even when Surah Yasin is talking about those challenges, those struggles,
Right.
there's always that undercurrent of hope.
Yeah, definitely. Hope and that possibility of redemption.
Like even in the description of the Day of Judgment, which can feel, I don't know,
Daunting.
a little daunting, yeah. Even
The
there,
hope.
there's still hope woven in. Remember how Ibn Najib talks about the fire of hell?
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't see it just as physical punishment,
Right. More like the separation from God.
a spiritual darkness. So even in that ultimate state of suffering, there's still that possibility
Of turning back to the light.
of seeking reconciliation, yeah.
It's never too late to return to the path.
And that's such a powerful message that's woven throughout the Quran.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So reassuring.
No matter how lost we might feel, how far we might stray, God's mercy is limitless.
Limitless. And his love is there for anyone who sincerely seeks it.
And that seeking, that constant effort to get back to that connection, that's really what it's all about.
That's the heart of the spiritual journey, this ongoing process of purifying ourselves, aligning our actions and intentions.
With the divine will.
Right?
And Surah Yasin doesn't sugarcoat it, does it?
No, not
It's
that.
very clear. This path, it's not always going to be easy.
It's going to have some bumps.
We're going to stumble, sometimes fall.
But that's all part of it. Their struggles are part of the process.
And that's when our faith is tested and hopefully strengthened.
Every challenge we overcome helps us to grow spiritually.
And we learn more about ourselves and about the divine.
So it's not about fearing the struggles. It's about seeing them as opportunities.
To grow. They're like a refining fire.
Yeah. Purifying our hearts, drawing us closer to God.
And Surah Yasin, especially through Ibn Ajiba's commentary, it helps us to recognize those chances for growth.
Even when we're in the middle of it.
Right, even when it feels really tough.
It's an invitation to embrace the whole human experience.
Yeah, the good and the bad.
The highs, the lows, the triumphs, the failures.
Like threads in this grand tapestry, woven by the divine.
Beautiful. And even in those darkest moments, the depths of despair, there's a light inside us.
That spark.
That spark of the divine that can never be extinguished.
And nurturing that light, tending to that spark.
Not only illuminates our own path, but also brightens the world.
This has been a pretty incredible journey. We've learned so much
It has
about Surah Yaseen, Ibn Ajiba's mystical interpretations.
a lot to think about.
We've barely scratched the surface, really.
There's so much more to discover in this text.
So much depth and richness. We really encourage you to keep exploring Surah Yaseen on your own.
Yeah, dive in.
Delve deeper into the meanings. See how this wisdom can illuminate your own life.
Ibn Ajiba reminds us that the Quran isn't just a historical text or a set of rules.
Right.
It's a living guide to help us cultivate that spiritual awareness, to notice God's presence around us, to nurture a pure heart, to strive for peace and union with the divine.
So, in your everyday life, try to see if you can spot those signs of God's presence, those little miracles that are all around us. Cultivate that sense of gratitude for this gift of life and this opportunity to grow spiritually,
And never give up on your journey, even when things are tough.
even when you feel lost.
Remember, that straight path is always there waiting for us. And the journey itself, with all its twists and turns, is a testament to how beautiful and complex our spiritual evolution is.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Surah Yasin. Until next time, may peace and blessings be upon you.